Namaskar Bondhura. Hi friends. Today we are going to have a recap of what we have learned till now, and actually we have learned quite a lot. So let's get started. Bangla belongs to the Indo-European language family. It has its own script. A major number of native speakers come from the eastern part of India and Bangladesh. Of course, there are several dialects of Bengali which have differences in pronunciation and accent. What we are learning is the Bengali spoken in and around Kolkata. This is considered to be the standard version of Bengali, and this is understood by most of the native speakers. Let's recap about nouns first because this is the easiest. So there are two versions of the Bengali language. The first is Shadhu Bhasha. This is the older version, the pure form. Uh, it is now it is only existing in the written text. It's heavily Sanskritized form of Bengali. The Cholit Bhasha or the running language is the colloquial form, and it's the currently spoken and written form of the language. It is influenced by quite a lot of languages, including Hindi, English, Urdu, and Romance languages like French, Portuguese, and Spanish. And it takes a lot of loan words from these languages as well. So, what does this mean? Is if you know Sanskrit, Hindi, English, and Urdu, you are already aware of about 80 to 90% of the Bengali nouns. The nouns may have been adapted or localized to suit the way the Bengali language is spoken. But since they come from these four languages, a lot of the words come from these four languages. So you might already have a very good standing vocabulary base when it comes to nouns. Next, pronouns. We covered a lot about pronouns in the initial lessons. So let's have a recap in case you have forgotten by now. Uh, so the subject pronouns are something you need to mug up because there is no other way you can know about them. So this Bengali for I is ami, you singular is tumi, he or she is o or she. Uh, I'll remind you that the language is gender neutral, so both he or she can be like represented by any of the words o or she. The more commonly used word is o. She and its plural form tara are used only in specific cases. Um, so o and ora are the more common versions for the singular and plural versions of the third person pronoun. We is amra and you plural is tumra. Now, to make the subject noun into the possessive, we add R to them. So all possessive forms of pronouns and also of nouns end with R, and the plural ones end with their. So for changing the subject to the possessive, ami becomes amar, tumi becomes tomar, o becomes or. She is the only exception, so she becomes tar. Amra becomes amader. This is the plural one, so we replace the ending with der. Amra becomes amader, tomra becomes tomader, ora becomes oder, tara becomes tader. Again, or and oder are the more commonly used versions of the third person pronouns. Uh, and also, one thing you need to remember for possessive, in case, let's say in English, for both my and mine. For example, this is my book and this book is mine. In both cases, in Bengali, the word for both the possessive pronouns in English, the Bengali word will be amar. Same for the other pronouns as well. In case you are talking to others or you're talking about others, that is in case of the second and third persons, there are casual, semi-formal and formal variants of the subject pronoun. Um Of course, if you are talking to someone much older in age or much higher to you in rank or social standing, it's safer to go for the formal version. But otherwise, the semi-formal version is more or less fine for talking to people in general. Uh, the subject pronouns are pronounced like this. For you singular, it's tui, tumi, apni. For you plural, it's tora, tomra, and apnara. In case of he or she, again, it's gender neutral. The pronouns do not change with the sex of the person. So it's o, and uni. In case of they, it's ora, ora, and onara. When pronouns go into the possessive form, they end with "are", the plural ones end with "their". This is also applicable in case of nouns. Possessive nouns also end with "are". Now, there are several constructs which we use for possessives. For example, pronoun plus noun. Our country, আমাদের দেশ. If I use a singular you, then your wish can be তোর ইচ্ছে, তোমার ইচ্ছে, or আপনার ইচ্ছে, depending on the degree of formality. For the semi-formal version, it will be তোমার ইচ্ছে. We can also have longer chains like pronoun plus noun plus noun. My friend's name, আমার বন্ধুর নাম, her brother's house, ওর ভাইয়ের বাড়ি. So whenever the pronoun and the noun, you can see both the pronoun and the noun, we are adding "are" or "there" to the end of it to make it into the possessive form, and we are just using it as a chain, like multiple possessives are one after the other to make that chain. Now, it's not necessary to always have a pronoun to make a possessive. It can be a noun plus noun as well. For example, father's money, babar taka, or song's tune, ganer shur. It can be figurative also. For example, Shonar Kella literally translates to gold's castle. Now, a castle of gold is possibly not a very logical uh, occurrence. So, Shonar Kella implies that it's a golden colored castle or golden hued castle. Uh, and so, if you come across such words which do not make logical sense, then possibly they have a figurative meaning. Now, this possessive forms of adding pronoun plus noun or noun plus noun, this can go on limitlessly as long as you follow the order of the words and you add the correct "are" or there at the end of the word. For example, this is an example I cooked up. আমার বোনের বন্ধুর দাদার বিয়ের নেমন্তন্ন. So this translates to my sister's friend's brother's marriage's invitation. Uh, বিয়ের, we use বিয়ের নেমন্তন্ন for, but in English it will be marriage invitation, but in Bengali it is বিয়ের নেমন্তন্ন. Uh, for pointers, the most important thing to remember is for this, anything regarding this people, these people, this thing, this place, this direction, anything referring to this starts with the word e, anything referring to that starts with the word o, and anything referring to that over there which you cannot see, those things or people start with she. So for singular people it's a, o, she. For plural people, it's era, ora, tara, and tara is the only exception in this entire chart, um, because it does not start with she. For things, it's eta, ota, sheta. For plural things, it's egulo, ogulo, shegulo. Place, এখানে, ওখানে, সেখানে. Direction, এদিক, ওদিক, সেদিক. For side, in case something is undivided, let's say a bed. A bed will have two sides, but they are linked. So you say epash, opash, this side, that side. But in case of something which is divided, let's say two sides of a road, it's divided by the road, or two sides of the river, it's divided by the river. So in those cases, you will say epar and opar, this side and that side. So for everything, there may not be a that over there pointer. So, but this and that is applicable for all, and the rule that they will start with a o she is also generally applicable for all categories. Okay, let's have a look at verbs because verbs are basically the heart of any language. Verb forms change with the subject. Firstly, they change with the person, whether it's first person, second person, or third person. They change with the degree of formality, whether it's the casual, semi-formal, or formal version. Now, in first person, there are no degrees of formality involved, so the verb remains the same for uh, for all purposes. For second and third person, there are the semi-formal, formal, and casual versions, so the verbs can change in second and third person. But we are keeping to the semi-formal version as of now. Uh, Verbs do not change with the number of the subject, whether it's a singular or a plural subject, the verb remains the same. Does not change whether the subject is male or female. In fact, nouns and pronouns don't have assigned genders like many languages have assigned genders for nouns and pronouns, but Bengali doesn't have them unless it's obvious. For example, the word father in Bengali also, it's understood that this is a masculine word, but let's say words like computer or friend or baby or sun, moon, these words do not have any genders associated with them. This is a chart of all the verb endings for the simple present tense. Uh, we are only learning the semi-formal version, uh, but you can have a look at the endings for the other ones. We might learn a couple of them in the later chapters, but for most purposes, we will stick to the semi-formal version as of now. We have already learned these verbs. Uh, so all of these verbs belong to the same group in the sense that they have similar endings. Chawa, dewa, newa, kawa, pawa, gawa, showa. All of them end in wa. And so because the root verb has similar ending, all of the conjugations also have similar endings. Also, for the third person, this group of verbs will take on the ending I. Um, so, we have covered these verbs in various lessons. I'm not going to go over them fully in this one. So, let's just take a sample, maybe chawa. So, for the first person, both singular plural, ami chai, amra chai, the ending is E. For you singular and you plural, the ending is O. So tumi chao, tomra chao. For the third person, the ending is I. O chai, ora chai. So for verbs having the if the root word in the verb ends in wa, the third person will take on the I ending. There are other verbs which have the other ending, so but we haven't covered them yet, so we will know about them in the later lessons. For negation, we just use na after the verb to make the negative of the verb. If there are no verbs involved in the sentence and we have to negate that sentence, we use noi. We can also use na in that case, but generally we will use noi. One of these special verbs is the verb to be in English. The reason it's special in Bengali is that there is no equivalent of the to be verb for the simple present tense. So we just use the subject plus the object portion of the sentence, which is equivalent to subject plus identifier, as in the name, class, shape, age, color. And the verb is simply understood. There is no verb in the sentence. Um, it's a different verb from to exist. Uh, we haven't covered the verb to exist yet, uh, but this is a how should I say, unique feature of Bengali, that we do not have the equivalent of to be verb in the language. And as we said, if you encounter a sentence which doesn't have a verb, we can use noi or na after that to make it to turn it into negative. Let's have a look at the structure of the sentence. This is the thing we started with in the first lesson, so I hope you remember. For a simple sentence, the structure is subject, object, verb, unless it's a poem or a song or a wordplay kind of sentence. In a simple sentence, there is always a single verb which is always at the end. Uh, Now, in certain sentences, there might be the missing to be verb, so you might find only the subject and object with no verb. Um, in case the verb is in the negative form, that it will still be at the end. So you will find the verb plus na at the end, and if it's the missing to be verb, then you will just find noi at the end. Uh, Subject is generally towards the beginning of the sentence. However, it might not always be explicitly mentioned, but since the verb form changes with the subject, you can kind of guess from the verb form what is the subject. For example, if I say khai, uh, then it implies that this is a first person sentence, so it will either be ami khai or amra khai. Okay. And the middle of the sentence can be simple or complex. It might have one word, many words, depending on what we are trying to say. But there will be a single verb. Uh, that's the deal basically. So, in more complicated sentences, also the subject is generally towards the start, and again, they may or may not be mentioned. The middle of the sentence can be simple or complex, um, and there can be more than one verbs, or there are more than one verbs. The types of complex sentences we have encountered till now is where one verb is positive and the other verb is negative, and so the sentence has one affirmative portion, one negative portion. Um, so uh, we have seen that the affirmative and negative sections in the sentences can be flipped. However, there will always be one verb at the end. Always. So it can be, the structure can be subject object verb, object negative verb, or subject object negative verb, object verb. Um, so the positive and negative sections can be flipped, and the verb before na, that is the negative, in the negative portion of the sentence, the verb can be dropped and only the na can be there. uh, so like we said that there has to be a verb at the end, but in case the negative verb is at the end and you decide to drop the verb, then you are left with only na or noi at the end. So like if don't think that if na or noi is at the end of the sentence, then there is no verb, that then it means that the verb has been dropped, but it is the same verb as the verb in the affirmative section of the sentence. Inflections, like in other languages, also carry weightage in Bengali. So they can give out important information. The tone of the voice signals that whether the sentence which you are speaking is a statement or an exclamation or a question. And this is important, especially in cases where the affirmative and negative forms of the verb are not exactly they don't carry the same meaning. For example, cow means eat, and cow na means it. If I say it in flat manner, kauna, then it means that you don't eat. But if I say kauna, then it implies emphasis, and hence it means that you should eat. So those kind of information will be embedded in the tone of the voice and not exactly in the grammar of the sentence. So that was quite a lot. I hope this helps because we learned a lot. If you still have some doubts, please do ask questions in the comments and I will reply to them. Uh, Thank you for listening in. সবাই ভালো থেকো, আবার দেখা হবে. We will meet again soon.